Hello and welcome to this astrological forecast for the sign of Sagittarius for the year of 2025. I strongly recommend watching the video for your rising sign for the greatest accuracy, but you may also use these videos for your sun and or moon signs if you so desire. The first item I will call your attention to for 2025 is the fact that Pluto is now in Aquarius in your third house to stay for almost another 2 decades, deeply transforming your communication, travel, and what is familiar to you. Pluto has been back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius since March of 2023, but that transition period is now over, with 2025 being the first full year of Pluto in Aquarius. Other third house topics include siblings, neighbors, friends, reading, writing, studying, learning, and those you see on a regular basis. And so Pluto's time in Aquarius may unearth what is hidden in any or all of these areas for you in the years to come. Remember that this is a long, drawn-out process lasting almost another 20 years. In general, Pluto in Aquarius will transform everyone's relationship with technology, the collective, and the future. For you, Sagittarius, Pluto's time in Aquarius will have a lasting impact on your experience of loss, isolation, or your ability to transcend suffering. On February 23rd, Mars stations direct in Cancer in your 8th house of shared resources. This is part of an ongoing story that first began in September or October of 2024 and does not conclude until May or June of 2025, involving increased effort and energy output in your shared resources, business, or issues of life and death, as well as your beliefs, spirituality, or what is foreign to you and how these areas are connected. You may also be motivated to uncover secret or occult knowledge at this time. While Mars' direct station on February 23rd is significant, it is still only a turning point in a larger story. With Mars being opposite Pluto for so much of its retrograde, including its pre-retrograde and post-retrograde shadow periods, your actions or motivations having to do with your shared resources or beliefs are continually challenged to transform. While perhaps difficult, this is not something you should run from. Instead, utilize your Sagittarian disposition that would see this as an epic quest that you are destined to conquer and overcome. Focus on the positive aspects of the situation, and then channel your enthusiasm and use it as leverage for energy. In addition to all that is hidden, this transit will have a lasting impact on your fun, love, creative self-expression, or leisurely activities. On March 1st, Venus stations retrograde in Aries in your 5th house of fun. This too is part of an ongoing story, but one that does not begin until January of 2025 and does not end until May of 2025, involving the reflecting on and reconsideration of your relationships when it comes to your fun, love, children, creative self-expression, risk-taking, sex and sexuality, or leisurely activities. The exact Venus retrograde itself lasts from March 1st through April 12th, during which time the effects of it will be at their most intense. Past relationships can also occasionally resurface at this time. For further clarification, consider this. Venus has an 8-year synodic cycle, meaning it retrogrades through almost the exact same part of the zodiac every 8 years, and thus you can look back in your life to what happened in March and April of 2017 and know that those themes will tend to repeat in some way this year during this Venus retrograde. Venus retrogrades occur every year and a half, and they often function as significant stress tests on existing relationships. It is a time of reevaluating your relationships as well as what it is that you truly want. In addition to your work, health, or daily regimen, this transit will have a lasting impact on your friends, groups, or allies. The March madness continues when on March 14th, a lunar eclipse takes place in Virgo in your 10th house of career, indicating fateful developments in your career, reputation, or social status. In fact, all of March is our first eclipse season this year, a time when great changes beyond our control take place. With the lunar nodes recently having shifted to the Virgo-Pisces axis and thus your 10th and 4th house axis, you also now begin experiencing fateful changes in your home, family, or living situation. Although to be precise, there was just barely a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 17th, 2024, and so you may have already seen a preview of this theme around that time. The previous eclipse theme having to do with your fun, love, creative self-expression, or leisurely activities also finishes up for you in March, with the following solar eclipse on March 29th taking place in Aries in your 5th house, wrapping up something that began about 2 years ago. From here on out for about the next 2 years, however, the eclipses will be triggering major events having to do with your home, family, or living situation, as well as your career, reputation, or social status. On June 9th, Jupiter ingresses into Cancer in your 8th house of shared resources, indicating growth, expansion, and good fortune having to do with your shared resources, business, or issues of life and death for the rest of the year, especially if you were born during the daytime. It may sound strange for me to say good fortune when it comes to issues of life and death, but keep in mind this includes things such as birth, surgery, and resources you depend on to survive. You may notice in the chart on screen, however, that as Jupiter makes this ingress, it is also square to Saturn in Aries in your 5th house of fun, suggesting that the growth or good fortune in your shared resources creates ongoing stress with limitations in your fun, love, or leisurely activities. For example, the growth or expansion of your business could take up more of your time, leaving less time for fun or pleasurable pursuits. Again, this is just an example of how this energy can manifest, and I wouldn't worry too much about it since overall it is a very positive transit with Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer, giving it great wherewithal and resources to handle the limitations of Saturn. Your best strategy is to allow the growth in your shared resources to take place while keeping it in check with reasonable limitations. In addition to your money, values, communication, or travel, this transit will have a lasting impact on you personally as well as your home or living situation. On July 13th, Saturn stations retrograde conjunct Neptune in Aries in your 5th house of fun. This is a big deal. The ingress of slow-moving Saturn and even slower-moving Neptune into Aries this year is one of the key indicators that 2025 is a year of great change, unlike anything we have seen for many years prior. It is, however, still only a preview of things to come, with both Saturn and Neptune retrograding back into Pisces by the end of the year and not being in Aries to stay until 2026. Specifically, Neptune will be in Aries from March 30th through October 22nd, during which time you will experience increased faith or idealism in your fun, love, creative self-expression, or leisurely activities, though this will be tempered somewhat by the realism of Saturn when it too enters Aries on May 24th and remains there until September 1st, during which time you will experience increased limitation, order, or discipline when it comes to your creativity or pleasurable pursuits. When Saturn conjoins Neptune, confusing realities in your fun, love, or creative self-expression may manifest. These confusing realities could also have to do with your children, risk-taking, sex and sexuality, games and sports, or other pleasurable activities, and it is likely only through acceptance of them that you will find peace within them. Saturn will be within a 1-degree orb of Neptune from June 9th through August 4th, during which time the effects of the transit will be at their most intense. In addition to your home or living situation, this transit will have a lasting impact on your money, values, communication, travel, or what is familiar to you. On September 6th, Uranus stations retrograde in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius. As with Saturn and Neptune, Uranus ingress into Gemini this year is another major indicator of 2025 being a year of great change. But also like Saturn and Neptune, it is still only a preview of things to come, with Uranus retrograding back into Taurus by the end of the year and not being in Gemini to stay until 2026. Specifically, Uranus will be in Gemini in your 7th house from July 7th through November 7th, during which time you will experience the shaking up of your major relationships. When Uranus trines Pluto, sudden liberation of repressed fear or desire takes place in your relationships, as well as your communication or travel that ends up affecting your experience of loss, isolation, or ability to transcend suffering. Remember, however, that this is only a preview of things to come for the next 7 years. Uranus will be within a 1-degree orb of Pluto from August 11th through October 28th, during which time the effects of the transit will be at their most intense. Due to the sudden nature of Uranus, however, I would pay particular attention to September 5th, 6th, and 7th, the days immediately before, during, and after Uranus exact retrograde station. Speaking of September 7th, that is also the day of a lunar eclipse in Pisces in your 4th house of home, indicating fateful developments in your home, family, or living situation. It also kicks off the main part of our second eclipse season this year, which technically begins on August 23rd and ends on September 28th. Again, this is a time when great and powerful changes beyond our control can and do occur. The following solar eclipse on September 21st takes place in Virgo in your 10th house of career, suggesting fateful changes having to do with your career, reputation, or social status. With the eclipses now bouncing back and forth between your 4th and 10th houses, there is something about major changes in your private life that are impacting your public life, as well as major changes in your public life that are impacting your private life. Keep in mind that events signified by eclipses can occur on the exact date of an eclipse, between eclipses, or even between entire eclipse seasons. Eclipses are erratic and often unpredictable, in this way. On November 4th, Mars in your sign of Sagittarius opposes Uranus in Gemini. While this is not as long-lasting of an event as what I would typically include in a yearly context, its effects are so potent that it may very well end up defining the entire final quarter of the year, and thus I decided it needed to be included. With Mars in your first house opposite Uranus in your seventh house, strong drive or motivation on your part is challenged by the urge for liberation in your relationships. For example, your partner's desire for greater freedom in the relationship may be at odds with your own motivations or desire about how the relationship should be. Alternatively, it may be you who feels a greater desire for freedom in your relationships, and that desire challenges you to take action to make it happen. Again, I emphasize that these are just examples, and while this transit will have a lasting impact on your fun, experience of loss, and what is familiar to you, remember that it is ultimately down to the choices you make and actions you take that determine the exact outcome. Nevertheless, you will likely be rethinking your motivations when it comes to your relationships for all of November and into December. More generally, when angry Mars opposes unpredictable Uranus, sudden fighting and rebellion can occur, and we will all see this manifest on an individual and collective level on or around November 4th. Remember in this context that anger does not mean you are doing anything wrong. It is simply an indicator of the need for a boundary. 2025 is a year of great change, and I am not just saying that. Astrologers like myself have had their eye on this year for at least half a decade now due to its powerful indicators of great change. It is not common at all that in one year we have Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune all changing signs, with Pluto just having changed signs not long before the year began. For you, Sagittarius, deep changes and transformations in your communication, travel, or what is familiar to you have already begun with Pluto now in Aquarius. You experience increased effort and energy output in your shared resources as well as your beliefs in the first half of the year with retrograde Mars stationing direct in Cancer. You reflect on your relationships when it comes to your fun as well as your home in March and April when Venus is retrograde. Eclipses shake things up in your private life as well as your public life in March and September as they activate your 4th and 10th house axis. Growth and good fortune come to your shared resources from June onward when Jupiter ingresses into Cancer. Confusing romantic realities surface this summer when Saturn conjoins Neptune in Aries. Sudden liberation of repressed fear or desire takes place in your relationships in early September when Uranus trines Pluto. Finally, your urge for relationship freedom can be held back no longer when Mars opposes Uranus in early November. So I hope you have listened closely to all that I have here said, for 2025 is a year we will never, ever forget.